This episode is brought to you by FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's new series, Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, and go behind the scenes with cast and special guests, featuring Sarah Pigeon, Paul Anthony Kelly, Grace Gummer, and Naomi Watts. FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Today,
I love him. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same.
experience the greatest love story of all time.
Why did you leave me?
Why did you betray your own heart?
A film by Emerald Fennell,
Heathcliff.
Kathy,
Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi.
kiss me and let us both be damned.
Wuthering Heights. Original songs by Charlie XCX. Now playing only in theaters. Experience it in IMAX. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parent.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
a tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre.
And Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
Here we are.
We're live. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh
What?
no. Oh god. Oh, it's season 3. It's season 3 of Why We Roll.
Came at us out of nowhere.
Just like the last year did, really. But yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Why We Roll. Happy 2026. Hope you had a good New Year. Hope you drank some champagne, if that's what you're into. I hope you didn't if you're not. I personally went to bed super early. It was dope.
We set up till the ball dropped.
Nice.
But
Brave.
Big shout out to the Citywide as a drink format. But yeah, we're here. Chris has come on down to Chris's former stomping grounds and Gay and my present stomping grounds, Philadelphia. So kicking off season 3. We just finished season 2, not really that long ago, but man, it feels like a lot has happened since the winter break.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get into some of that beyond RPGs.
Trying to think, like, what? When did we take a break? It was
wasn't
maybe
long
like
ago.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, our time. It might be a little bit longer if you're listening to this on your podcast app of choice. But yeah, it does feel longer. It's weird. Yeah.
So in terms of RPGs, we're still out there making them.
We are. Yeah,
obviously playing them. And we're going to talk about that today. That's the focus. But yeah, it's been a weird January. And it'll probably just get weirder. So, doing a show about essentially RPGs and politics has never felt quite so relevant.
Yeah.
But so to get into it, I think today was just going to be a short discussion, Chris, about, what are we looking forward to in season 3 and what are some fun things to unpack from the past year and really the past couple of years of the show. I mean, it's been really great doing it with you. Looking forward to season 3, and we do have some great guests. So we're going to drop some names. Hopefully, the dates may change around, but I hope all these folks, they said in writing they're going to be on our show. So we really want to talk to all of them and many more who we just haven't scheduled with yet. Mm-hmm. So we're going to drop some themes that we're interested in and some names, and then finally just some quick updates, musings on our own, game design craft, because it's a little relevant to sort of how we approach, interviewing other people and again, learning from them, learning with them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's doing the show over the last couple of years has really informed how I am approaching game design these days.
Yeah.
As we kind of move through and away from the initial wave of Dance Macabre and onto other projects, there's a lot that we might talk about tonight. That's definitely been front of mind as I've been kind of just whittling away at some things I've been meaning to do for a while.
Yeah, same, exactly. Red one hundo on that as we wrap up a lot of great work for Dance Macabre, which is an awesome game. I'm looking back at Stillfleet. I know you're working on new stuff, so we'll get into that. But yeah, a lot of these conversations, we can really start there. looking at our list, is Spencer Campbell's Dragon Slayers. That's a game that we talked about last year when we saw Spencer at PAX.
Very briefly. If you listen to the PAX Unplugged 2025 episode, we have maybe like a 10-15 minute conversation with Spencer. As always, great to see him. Just a really lovely person. Just really happy to know him, really. But yeah, I think, we're both really interested in the way that Spencer has treated asymmetrical mechanics and design in Dragon Slayers, which for me is something that I'm kind of typically used to seeing in board games, and really only kind of recently, really. Like one of the first asymmetrical board games I remember seeing was Root, which was maybe 5 or 6 years ago from Leader Games. And I remember thinking, oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's a crazy idea to have a board game where everybody has their own discrete mechanics, but they interact very elegantly. And to see Spencer pull that off in Dragon Slayers, it's just really neat. And I think that's again something I've been thinking about a lot and really want to just personally play around with and implement. So.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna help us to see good examples in RPGs.
Yeah.
Because I think you could say all the way. I mean, you could say like Magic has asymmetries, right, in the strategies you play.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little different when it comes to traditional adventure games. There are sort of different epicycles. You think of wizards having spells. Okay, that's like a special set of rules that get unlocked. Magic. But other beyond that, it's become pretty concretized. You have sort of core mechanics, and then you might have 1 or 2 epicycles. I think the more core, like every class using different dice, is really fun, opens up a lot of ideas. So it's definitely something we've talked about. And I will say also, we're about to play our first game, having just read through some of it, in my case, of Daggerheart.
I haven't read it. I haven't read it. I'm the weak link in the book club right now, because I haven't had time to read it yet. But I will read it.
I helped put this game together with we should shout out our friend Leo Andrade, who offered very kindly at the beginning of the year, hey, let's play Daggerheart. I'm running a campaign. Do you guys want to try it? And we said, yeah, I mean, we keep hearing about it. People keep saying, you got to play this game. You got to write for this game. And, it looks interesting. I mean, I like a 2D12 system versus D20, sure. But one of the things that jumps out,
kind of dice curve there.
Yeah, it's going in a different direction than D&D, which I appreciate, and a little different than PBTA. Obviously, has some inspiration there. But one of the things I like about it is that this is a smaller thing, but it's across the industry, right? Calling essentially, instead of species, which were in the past races, which I think is really weird, calling different kinds of what I call biomechanical heritages in the definition in Stillfleet, calling them species, moving to community. They're just communities, and you can have different kinds of communities. And we talked about already, like, communities could be linguistic communities, cultural communities, in addition to...
It can be as kind of large or as small as you want or need it to be for the story that you're telling, which I think is really, really cool. Yeah.
It's very cool, and you don't have to bioessentialize too much. I like that they pare that down. It's 2 powers, and you can even swap them out. So it's really 1 core power and then a backup, and you can have sort of hybrids. So I think for Stillfleet 2, that's probably something that'll change more than the classes, I think, because it's a game like Danse Macabre about social class, political class, economic class. The classes are the classes, but there are other classes to explore. We've talked about cantiners, kind of NPC classes becoming playable, but then also I think the species will become communities. So that's just a look ahead at how some of the mechanics we're kind of learning about with viewers, I imagine, are influencing like our own just decision making when it comes to again. So I will say, we want to do a Stillfleet 2. I want to involve everyone that I've had fun working with over the years. But what does that mean? Is it just republishing a book that already exists? I mean, no, I of course not. I can't possibly, I'm Heraclitus. I can't touch the same thing and not fuck with it. So that's just another example. Asymmetric class design as well. And then another one to throw out there is the idea of unseens, which I'm calling unventure rules in Stillfleet. But I was talking with Tony Vicenda, who did Through the Void, so +1 XP is a new sci-fi game coming out. Informed by like Star Trek, and of course, it touches on some themes similar to Stillfleet, but I think we have our own takes on this. I mean, that's coming out of an OSR kind of mechanic, but I love the idea of the cutaway, B scenes, the cutaways, and I think that's something I've been doing as a GM. Okay, what's going on over here? Okay, what was the dream you had last night? These kind of moves that have no tie to adventuring,
right?
But how do we mechanicalize them? So big shout out to Hex of Hexagon, Vex Shop Blanc, and usually in the chat. And
usually in the chat Blanc.
Yeah, we'll have to have back on the show. But yeah, I mean, again, talking with people about their games and what they like, and realizing, we like the same thing. Spider-Man, pointing.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's all just the Spider-Man.
It's all Spider-Man
pointing
meme.
Yeah.
But it's going to look different, right? In DM or Stillfleet. So those are some things that these are some folks I hope we have on again or have on for the first time. But people in our community whose work we admire. And there's plenty of other things to say. Maybe do we want to turn to sort of genres and cool ideas about genres and subgenres and people who are...
Well, I kind of feel like we can't leave the Spider-Man thing hanging, considering that we are going to have a special Spider-Man episode. Please don't sue us, Disney. But we will have a special Spider-Man episode of Why We Roll coming up for season 3. With your buddy Eric.
Yeah, Eric Grunhauser is a friend who's a really good writer, and I also knew him when he was doing stand-up comedy. He's very funny, and he's really loved comics and knows a lot about games, comics, all kinds of cool sci-fi novels, things that we read. But it specifically wrote The Dummy's Guide to Spider-Man. So we were kind of interested to just chat about the creative process and the long road from you're good at something, you're interested in something, to you get the book deal, the book comes out. And obviously, again, please don't sue us, Disney. I mean, that scale is gigantic compared to what we're doing. But it's still coming from, I think, an indie perspective of like, I'm actually really curious about this, but how did he get selected for that, and what is the fun of taking all your lore in your head and I have to make it usable, because in some sense like a game manual.
That's what I was going to say. Is the thing I'm really interested in talking to Eric about is just sorting information. It's like how do you take all this lore? How do you compress it into something that is consumable but also useful?
Right.
Because it is a manual, right? That's what the Dummies series
theory,
kind of are.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how to Spider-Man. This is how to Spider-Man.
It's really a manual for being a fan. This is how you become a super fan of thing X. Is you get these episodes or these issues or whatever. Yeah,
that's a good way to think about it. But I mean, so how do you make that information both entertaining and useful? I mean, that's a conversation that we had over and over again working on Dance Macabre specifically, right? It's like, how do we balance all of this fascinating, cool history with just cognitive burden of learning a game and also trying, just all the facts, like how do you make it accessible? How do you make it consumable and fun, but also don't lose the kind of like elan vital of the whole thing? You know what I mean?
No, and that does make me think of another conversation we had at PAX with somebody who's going to come back on the show pretty soon for a full episode. Really excited. Roderick Maxino.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Roderick on.
And Roderick has done all this work with Mothership, which, again, I think there's different takes on sci-fi and what sci-fi can be, and there's different moves you can do. And I find it really refreshing learning about Omen Jerome and Archiver and his work to kind of take what's there in Mothership and make it very much his own and kind of go into, I would say, this emergent genre that's an intersection of near future sci-fi, horror, and like media archaeology, like basically the podcast or the documentary that's kind of haunted. So this, the Magnus Archives, Archive 81.
Archive 81,
There's so many stories. I mean, it sort of touches, I think it touches on the retro futurism of like a Stranger Things as well. But I like that with Archiver especially, he's taking genre expectations. Okay, it's space horror, but then really flipping them, and it's still very dark, but it's also kind of comedic because you're kind of this cleanup crew, you're retelling, so you have this meta position to the genre because you're able to tell the story of what happened here,
It's pretty good. Pretty good stuff.
So I think in terms of playing with genres, I'm also excited to have Roderick on for a longer, again, we talked to him for all of 10 minutes right at PAX, but it was a great intro.
But what a 10 minutes.
What a 10 minutes.
What a 10 minutes it was. I'm very excited to have Roderick on. For whatever, all the same reasons. I think that it is super interesting, just going back to Magnus Archives, Archive 81, Archiver, all wait, did I say that right? Archive 81? Yeah,
right? Yeah.
No, I think it is interesting because it so reflects our current moment. It reflects what you and I are literally doing right now, but then also kind of ties it back to a mythical past, with that retrofuturism. And I think also something that we're probably going to talk about in the third season, just because it's come up today in conversation a few times, is authenticity.
Right. Oh, that's a great touchstone. Yeah.
And I think that retrofuturism comes from a desire for that kind of authenticity.
Yeah.
That is also the big draw that people have for tabletop role-playing games in a whatever postmodern kind of culture where nobody knows what the fuck is going on anymore. Nobody knows what's real or sincere or ironic or AI slop, frankly. And yeah, I mean, speaking about authenticity as well, I mean, we just keep talking about cool people that we're excited to have on. We're going to have our friend M. Friedman, who is an academic scholar. They study tabletop role-playing games. They're an English professor. They've written about Jane Austen. They've written about a wide range of topics, including fan fiction. But in the last few years, they've been following, TTRPG actual plays. I think they've done some coverage of Critical Role, things like that, some Dimension 20, all of that good stuff. But no, M is great because they're like really tapped into popular culture and the kind of zeitgeist of where our industry is, but is able to kind of like approach it from this very removed academic sense.
Well, that's the thing with in anthropology, you can study communities that aren't your own, but after the, around 1970 in the global north, there was this idea to sort of repatriate anthropology and study your own communities and be skeptical in the same ways, right? And have basically be symmetric. And so instead of, the global north makes knowledge and then other communities may or may not, have real knowledge and let's figure that out. It's like, no, all cultures make meaning. And how do different cultures make meaning? Well, you make meaning in a biotech lab differently than you do making a podcast about some subgenre of nerd culture, differently than you do, on a farm. And those are all things you can study. So I think it's interesting to talk to someone who's a historian anthropologist of our industry, having myself been trained in that way. But then now my goal is to not do any of that. Other than this show is my one outlet of like really nerdy social science stuff. It's mostly to write the games, right? Yeah. So I think it'll be fun to sort of get someone who's more expert, and sort of like how do you, and also have talked to, frankly, the bigger names, right? Because we listen on and off. I'm not a big major fan of the big APs, but I've listened enough that I can have a conversation about it for sure. And I listen to a lot of, my on and off my friends kind of APs. Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting to hear, how the industry changes reflected through that lens, because I do think you're seeing kind of parallel industries emerge where you have indie being different enough from the big guys that they are almost just different things, they're just different sort of stories being told. So, the waveforms might sort of dance together in many ways and be correlated in some ways, but I'll be curious to sort of hear M's take on all that. I do think that also brings up, just in terms of the play with genre and back to sort of horror and SF and where that's all going. I'm also thinking of Tanya Floker's new work. So I'm really excited. We asked Tanya to be on the past and then scheduling just didn't work out.
Happens.
And so I'm really excited we're getting around to talk about the Thunder Perfect Mind, which is going to come out soon, which just looks rad. And again,
it looks really cool.
Yeah, this beyond the Black Rainbow, Stranger Things kind of genre has really solidified. And I think it's, in a weird way, it's this recursivity of like Stranger Things borrowing D&D and then RPGs being able to use that and run with it. Yeah,
it's a real chicken and egg.
Gabrielle Quiroga, I think, did a Hell Knight and these kinds of stories where like there's something there about the current moment. And this touches on a big theme we want to get to of when you're dwelling in the moment of the apocalypse and how do you tell the stories. I do think back to the original reason when you were pitching me on Danse Macabre, right? It's like, what are these stories, all these skeletons, Grim Reapers, where does that come from? Well, it's an era when in some ways there was a sort of, Pax rich guy dumbassery in the West of Europe in the High Middle Ages. And then in the Late Middle Ages, it all went to shit. There's the plague and there's all these wars and religious upheaval, ultimately the Reformation. And that there was kind of this desire to like understand death, or like you were just seeing it everywhere. So it just became part of the aesthetic kind of naturally. And I think politics now, as the US specifically and the global north broadly descends into chaos, the kind of idea that, we're surrounded by sort of invisible QAnon forces, but also it's kind of the devil. And that might be a source of power, or like, there's something there. I think it's just going to show up in games again and again.
I mean, that reminds me of something that we talked about with Sean Ireland from Triangle Agency.
Yeah.
Which will be coming out in season 3. We already had that conversation.
We had the you can watch it on YouTube.
You can watch it on YouTube prior to listening to this. So if you have some kind of like precognitive ability, you've seen it on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. However, something that we talked about with Sean is like, corporations, and I would argue it goes beyond that, but like large governmental bodies, whether it's like at a corporation level or at a federal level, whatever, those are the eldritch entities of our time.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
that was a great insight. Thinking of themes, I think that really brings a lot together. And Sean sort of spelled that out, and look, this is the reason we did the game this way. Again, it's parallel to some of the work we've done, but really a nice, profound summary of Shibboleth. You could see why people reacted to it, bought the game, played the game, because it takes the nostalgia for the X-Files and the sort of genre of espionage and sort of near future horror and science, and it gives you that enemy to attack that is the most obvious guy in the room, the corporate state, right?
It's kind of it's kind of the same thing with oh my god, I'm completely blanking. Help me out here. Ultraviolence.
J.D. Clement and Hypermall, Unlimited Violence.
Unlimited Violence. Yeah. No, it's kind of similar with Hypermall too. There's a kind of similar approach here. Although I would argue J.D. is a lot more like kind of
satirical, right?
Satirical and like 1980s British satirical, like the early Games Workshop satirical with it, whereas Sean is a little bit more polished.
Well, and I think this leads really nicely, because I do want to bring up a couple other things, just thinking of it, is we're going to talk in the middle of the season to Justin Sirois from Severed Books, who did Sickest Witch, which is really dark. I mean, it'll probably be
super dark.
The darkest single thing we talk about in the show, but also weirdly really elegant, and I think, again, kind of comes from this neo-Danse Macabre moment in which we find ourselves, where you're seeing cops shooting people willy-nilly on the street. And so if you're going to make games, even if you're like, okay, I'll make a fantasy game, it's not set now, it's not set here, but in some ways that structure of sort of inexplicable violence and how do people react to it, and what would it look like to have heroic abilities in the face of this, and is there the dark eldritch that you can tap into, i.e. I think to put a name on it, can we do our own direct actions? Can we form our own committees that have some ability to push back with potentially violence against the state? Those are, I think, very pressing questions, even if other people don't articulate them that way, because they're not nerds in the same way you and I are about Marxist stuff. But like they still have their own version of like, they're like putting all the things together and seeing like, wait a second, And so I think it'll be interesting to ask people working in different genres. And Justin's work is touching on the same world as Danse Macabre, right? Kind of low fantasy. But I think it'll be fun to ask to the degree. I have no idea what he'll say, right? I haven't asked him, but how does sort of politics of the now figure in, if at all? Do you think that influences the aesthetic? Do we see these kinds of things come and go as culture, from the remove of, are there cycles? And just more broadly, this gets to something we wrote down on a little list, our cheat sheet, which is, the politics of representation when it comes to, fascism and resistance, and how games are increasingly having to deal with that and say, okay, there's bad guys. We talked about Eat the Reich. Still trying to get on Grant Howitt, but
it's not even really like a new thing. I would argue, like, really in the last 5 years, we've seen a ton of this.
Coming up, right? That's true.
Eat the Reich is a great example. Spire is a great example, where it's like, we're living under very open fascism.
And how
we've been under it for a while, but like now that it's like the optics are not a problem for them anymore, apparently. It's like, how does that bleed into the genres that we're writing? How does that bleed into our games? And then how do we model resistance? How do we talk about resistance? Both on a mechanical level, and how do we make it fun and engaging and interesting, but also on a level of like, how do we do a resistance? You know what I mean?
And I'm really excited also to talk to Lori Blake and just talk about games that look at direct action as the central narrative, structure. Which is, again, you could put these games, and actually someone could, maybe M or someone, or we could sit down and write this essay at some point. But you could line up a bunch of games and say, how do the narrative structures relate to politics? And in Stillfleet, you're not necessarily fighting fascists. You're fighting very self-consciously neolibs. They're not fascists, but they're bad. In Spire and Eat the Reich, you're fighting fascists, right? In Why We Fight, it's kind of ambiguous, but they're much more coded to be fighting fascists. But I think in these games, they're also different. Like Spire, I think, is much more darkly, like, there's no out. It's more like Brazil, like any resistance is co-opted. Or what was I keep forgetting the name, but fighting, I always want to say fights from now to everywhere all at once, or something that just keeps bridging to another movie. It's like before then, I'm punching
one battle after
that one, which I'm so ambivalent about, because it's supposed to be this kind of weird, like, no, it's cool, it's left, but it is like, okay, but it's depressing if you look at just
so sad.
It's so sad. It's like the best we can do is kind of escape from the worst of the fascists momentarily,
right? But otherwise maintain a status quo.
It's not a great lesson. So I do think it'll be. I want to talk to Lori, because specifically, their game is about, actual, like, you can win. In the same way that, even though it doesn't really explain how exactly this would work, but, like, I think it's still think you can win. I don't think in Spire, weirdly, you can win, as I understand, at least the OG. I mean, I read Strata and Heart and all that, but the OG game I've played is like you're kind of meant to die heroically in like a weatherman kind of situation, which is like, I don't really want to do that, bro. Like in real life, like I want to have the luxury gay space communism be the thing that happens after when I get to level 20. You know what I mean? Like
that's what you get.
That's what I want.
Level 20,
Yeah.
It's just automatically.
You just get like a robot who's like, how can I 3D print things for you? You know, like, I don't know. We won't get there in our lifetime, maybe, but like I don't want to do a weatherman and like end up in jail and hunted. Like that sounds horrible. You know, like I'm a nerd. So I think that was all to say that the people are representing, and you're absolutely right. It has been there for a while, but now the articulations have to.
Right.
I mean, we storytellers have to
deal with
grapple with open. We're talking about obviously the United States and open fascism, right? So how do you represent that in games, or do you just not tell games that have anything to do with reality? And okay, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Is my
well, I think that's the big
rejoinder.
question with that. Yeah, that's a good rejoinder because you can't.
You can't.
Just,
I don't think.
You just can't.
Maybe someone will come on and be like, "Here's how I don't grapple with any of the things you're talking about. I just make fun games." So we'll see.
I make a game where I am an amoeba floating in a primordial sea where debt and
Italo Calvino wrote this, by the way. I feel like T equals 0. That actually brings up the last topic. And sorry, you should talk more. I just want to introduce this.
Yeah,
this
it
gets us
does
to
actually segue nicely.
Our last sort of topic before I think we should just go on to sort of us and what we're up to and close it out. But something that we wrote down and we brainstormed. Okay, what are we interested in? Is this bifurcation real or perceived between quote unquote adventure games and quote unquote story games? I've talked a little with industry, friends, colleagues who have, it's facile, it's useful to say, look, there are games that build on the Gygaxian simulating fighting monsters tradition, and they do it to different ends. And again, I think you could put in everything, Still Free, Triangle Agency, Spire in that world, which aren't at all like a D&D in some ways, but there's that same moment to moment, I'm rolling dice, do I hit the thing? Yeah. And then there are games that are story games, which are not simulating the world the same way, and very often I think the key difference seems to be they're not telling story. They're both telling stories, obviously, but the games that are called story games are not telling stories about fighting monsters, whether the monsters are wandering monsters or space Nazis, right?
Sure.
And so I think that is a fair distinction on one level. On another level, that breaks down pretty quickly in practice as a GM, and I would say, and I don't think it's that useful as a designer necessarily. It's useful as a marketer, but as a designer, it's annoying. But so that's, I think, I want to ask him. I want to ask some of our guests where they kind of fall, and are these terms? Have they heard other terms? How do they think about their games as being part of a quote unquote adventure sort of tradition that either can be rehabilitated or should be destroyed, right? And we should all make kind of Nordic LARPs, whatever. So I think it's like there's sort of different takes, but I don't know if you have thoughts on sort of where the industry's headed with sort of what is a game and what is the right way to do RPGs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it feels like a false binary to me to say that there are adventure games and there are story games. And I think, that's probably the lowest hanging fruit here, right? Like, of course, it's more of a spectrum between the two, and they share so many elements or so many genetics. So I think, at first blush, it does feel arbitrary. But I do, I agree. I think, we love to make patterns. We love to categorize things. So it's nice to have buckets to throw things into. And, it also makes things, like I said, it's facile. It's easier to talk about that way.
Well, I also wonder, the fact that, to me, the story game elements have been really fun in our open West Marches Stillfleet game. And hey, Vex, enter the chat. And yes, we're both here in Philly for Page, which we should get to at the end. Philadelphia Area Game Expo, which is now, but we're starting tomorrow morning.
We're starting tomorrow.
I think the Unventure rules, which shout out to Vex has really helped. Those rules are coming from trying to codify the story game elements that are already in Stillfleet when I run it, at least when people I know run it with me, who are GMs who I like playing with, and I see that, okay, we're doing all these things, and can we just have language that helps players? Can we have props that are discursive props players can touch and own that help them do the kind of downtime character building, world building that has nothing to do, they don't have to necessarily roll scores or use powers. They can still do those things, but they don't have to, and it's part of a sort of different cinematic mode, sort of montage time. And so I think that's an interesting case where recently, to me, it's broken, the binary's broken down in a specific way, and I'm curious with Danse Macabre, and maybe this is a transition to ask about Thrall, but some of the stuff you're working on, how much if you're worried about it all, or if you have in your head any sort of moves that go beyond sort of simulating, fighting goblins of some kind or another, right?
For Thrall, no.
yeah, sure. I figured
honestly, Thrall is very much like an Unga Bunga exercise, and we'll get into what that is in a moment. For Dance Macabre, yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been thinking about kind of just epicyclic moments, right, with downtime, because there are some downtime rules in Dance Macabre, but they're fairly mechanical, right? It's like you can train a thing, you can make a thing, you can craft stuff, things like that, but there isn't any more kind of narrative heavy props or discursive elements that would just kind of like facilitate just kind of an improv session, with or without rolling dice.
Now let's see a scene about blank,
right.
Which isn't about, because the training you could have a scene. I go to such and such.
Well, and my assumption when I was writing that stuff too is that that's what I would do if I was a GM. Yeah. This is how I'm giving you the mechanics for it, but if I was running it and I just don't come out and say it in the text, which maybe you should, I don't know. I don't know if there's
text
a right
is
way.
Great. It's great. It's a great book.
In my mind, it's like, well, if I'm going to introduce the idea that you can have a training scene, then why wouldn't you act out a training scene? But I do see the need for something that's a little bit more specific to the task.
Well, I can imagine, I'm not saying we should do this, but like a zine that's like a downtime zine for Dance Macabre that goes deeper.
No, we should do that.
We should totally do it.
We should do that.
Into
why
kind of
we do that?
different scenes that you might want to see and how to call them. And, you could think through, I'm sure it could be structured more around a pilgrimage and who is a pilgrim and what is their life like. But you can structure those things. I will say in writing the solo rules for Guide to the Abandoned World, which is, I think, also really good. Lots of writers involved. I edited it and wrote the solo part and really just based it very much on Chris's rule book and tried to stay true to that and just kind of keep it as tight as possible, but have this really capacious. You could do the whole adventure game however you want, just on your own with pen and paper. Yeah. And it works more or less. But I think one of the things with the journaling component was to think through, okay, what are the moments in this person's life that we want to know more about? Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be that every time you roll the die, okay, you have to answer a question. Now, maybe there's a game there, but I thought, to me, it didn't play it. I wanted it to play like Reaper Rune at points. You're fighting guys and you're writing down, okay, did I hit the demoniac or not? Because it's a combat, it's a zombie, right? Yeah. You're fighting zombies. But I also wanted those journaling elements of, okay, then you stop after you've done that pilgrimage and you have to kind of stop and answer some questions. Mm-hmm. And that brings in that element. So it was meant to be a hybrid. And I think, again, that's coming from people we've had on the show talking about solo games and story games. And I think it's come from working with Chris and hearing the things you liked about DM and thinking, okay, how do you amplify that? And so not interrupt it, but amplify it or put punctuation on it. Yeah. And it's all an experiment. And to be honest, I mean, that was an unlocked Kickstarter stretch goal. So that was not even, we wrote that last, but
that was kind of fly by night.
But the game is great. The book is great. And it does now have it has this whole chapter. So I do think there's a lot that we've been able to do right up until we were still working on it. But to turn to 2026 in terms of other things we're going to do besides have dope guests on the show, we will keep talking about our own work occasionally, in part because I do think it's useful, maybe if listeners have followed, to hear kind of experiences, strategic retreats, even, places where we haven't done great. But long story short, DM is coming and there'll be more of it.
It's coming real soon. The big news as far as Dance Macabre goes is that we have sent off some stuff for proofs to the printer. It's very exciting. So the Dance Macabre rulebook and Guide to the Abandoned World, we're gonna maybe in 2 or 3 weeks we'll get those in the mail and
we'll show them off.
We'll put it up on stream. But I'm super excited every time. Tony, shout out Anthony Grasso. Every time he sends us a PDF proof, I get just so giddy. And when I finally saw the cover with the spine with the back as one image, oh my god, it feels so good. It's very cool. So I'm stoked for that. But hopefully we'll have everything out. By summer is what we're aiming for. And then next, we've got Unsunken, which you're wrapping up. We got to do a bunch of illustrating for that, but I'm not too worried about it.
We have a big map, both above and below Paris. So this is, the game is set in Constantinople in the rulebook in 1390, and then the kind of mega dungeon or alt campaign setting that I'm writing is Paris at the same time. So it's much more I really, to me, the ultimate inspiration is like, it's Sergio Leone and it's all the great Chambara, Jidai Geki, like movies where you are coming to town, you're the stranger who's come to town, who's made the difference, you've lit the fuse. So there's different factions above and below Paris. There's sort of 4 big factions controlling the city. One of them is the obvious, more good guy faction, frankly, but all of them are kind of, that you can't trust nobles. And then below are all these mines full of basically mutant zombies. So I think that's a fun game because everything in it, every single element is basically based in real history, other than the idea of a kind of powerful thieves guild that allies with the university, just because the real university was an appendage of the Catholic Church and the crown, but it did have its own power and its own culture in this time. So what I did, this sort of one novum from a cultural standpoint, I mean, the rest of it I tried to just use because there were so many good elements. The Mad King, all the stuff with the English, including, the Black Prince, who's died at this point, but, okay, he's come back.
Well,
but,
now he's a demoniac.
but he's decided, not that he doesn't want smoke from France, but just, he's like, fuck, like even I also am sort of mortal. So there's been issues with succession in England. And then, like even the Prévôt de Paris, the kind of royal, basically the equivalent of a mayor. There's a Prévôt de Marchand who's appointed by rich guys for other rich guys, the guilds, and there's the Prévôt de Paris who's like kind of the mayor who's appointed by the king, and he's this knight who's like the first forensic detective, it turns out, who's like really into solving like crimes.
Yeah, we were talking about this.
So I don't want to go on, but that book, I think DM is so good. What Chris has, and I think Guide is nice, having a bunch of authors, including Chris and myself, and it's been really fun now as kind of at the end to follow up with this mega dungeon. And big shout out, why I started rambling about it was Mike Cohen is helping me from Nostalgitron, and who's been on the show before a couple times, is helping with the maps because for a living so shout out if you run a mine, he works on graphics around mines and is an expert on kind of mapping and stuff. So he's helping me because it is a lot of information again from IRL history. So a lot of that book
actual gypsum mines
is just kind of trying to correlate. Like there's almost just like we were joking about the other day. There's so many facts about actual Constantinople and actual Paris. They're really amazing histories separate from mutant zombie apocalypse and a fun adventure game system to frame exploring it. So we've tried to be true to that, but also obviously as GMs we want the books to be they're no more than they're 200 page books, right? They're not super long, they're A5, so it's not like a history book. It's a game. They're all games.
It's very, very consumable, I think. But I mean, other than that, we've also got if you signed up on the Kickstarter, if you were a backer, I mean, you would already know this. If not, why are you even here?
You can still back. You can still back right now.
Late pledge, please. Late
it's
pledge.
Like $2 more.
Yeah, it's not that much. But the last book that we have coming out from the Kickstarter is Reliquary. It's not really a book; it's more of a zine. But that's 100 relics that you can just randomly roll for if you're running Dance Macabre, or just to leaf through for nice art and fun ideas.
It's all the relics are great. You've done a great job at that, and inspired. I did 30 relics in Unsunken. And I have to just say these are all again real things that could have been in Paris. The one, this is a stretch because it probably wasn't in Paris, but could have been, is at the time there was a book being written called A Treatise on the Astrolabe, which was a book from a father who was successful to a son, where he was translating work from Latin that was translated from Arabic about how to use an astrolabe. And it was the first technical manual published in England.
Nice.
And in my version, somehow a guy gets a draft copy, basically Roudier, who's English, gets a draft copy and ends up in Paris in the dungeon. So in the dungeon, there's a guy who's English who has this book that's a draft copy of a book from a rich father to his son. And this is a real book. And you know who wrote this book at this time?
I don't.
Geoffrey Chaucer.
What?
Geoffrey Chaucer, folks, wrote a book. So it's in the game. I just realized this saying out loud. It would have to be it would have to be the original book he was translating, because 13, the math, right? It'd be 30 years older.
Yeah.
So I'll fix that. But I love that, like, he on the side after, because he was like the head, he was like a comptroller of London. So he was in charge of like following up about import tax like the guys who get paid to take taxes from the merchants. He was their boss to make sure they weren't corrupt. But then on the side, he wrote the Canterbury Tales.
Yep.
And then on the side of that, he just taught himself navigation for like no reason and translated a bunch of weird shit. So
Chaucer was the man. He also wrote a lot about how women are superior to men in every single way, which I think is so fucking awesome.
Rad.
Yeah, it's so
That's rad. My guy would
good.
have had, imagine Chaucer with a YouTube
so
channel
cool.
today.
Oh my God.
The cool things, like him and Hank Green and like...
Oh yeah.
He'd have like Dochi on there, you know, just they'd be like talking about science. Honestly, yeah, it'd be great.
I would listen to that.
I would watch resurrected Jeffrey Chaucer. So hey, Jeffrey Chaucer, if you've been resurrected and you're not too confused 600 years later, we'd love to be on your show. We'll do a collab feed drop.
We'll come through. Yeah, I'd love to talk.
Speaking of weird resurrections and stuff,
Jesus.
Chris, I'm told you have another game you're working on, which sounds fun.
I do.
Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to...
Yeah, no, I can't stop myself. It's funny. You know, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Writing Dance Macabre is very much an exercise in balancing like a lot of information and trying to be, just being honest, being kind of delicate about some of the information. What to veil, what to present. You know, what's fun, what's not fun, what all this kind of stuff. And I think I broke my brain a little bit. Just a little bit. And there was a part of me that was like, man, I just really want to play just a dumb fucking dungeon crawler right now. That's all I want in this moment. It's just a really dumb dungeon crawler where I don't have to think that much, but it's still fun. And I've had an idea for a while about a game called Thrall, which is kind of your traditional dragon game bullshit. It's got a bit of a twist because, as listeners may know, I have a bugbear around magic in TTRPGs. I think it's too powerful. I think it would drive you insane and turn you into what I've deemed a magocrat instead of a technocrat. And I've followed that line of logic, and also my fears around like Peter Thiel and network states and all this kind of stuff have led me to actually start writing the game. But basically, in Thrall, you're a fucked up little guy in a kind of like traditional low magic, low fantasy world. And you are enthralled to a wizardly patron, a magocratic wizardly patron who sends you out to other wizardly patrons, like city states and dungeons and stuff to steal artifacts and to fuck with them and spy and, whatever, just be a fucked up little guy. That's it. That's Thrall. It's mostly written to be an extremely simple. It's going to play somewhat like Dance Macabre in some ways, but it's a lot simpler. I've taken things, a lot of the specificity and toned it way, way back. Right?
Oh, interesting.
So like there are some things I'm keeping, like different types of weapons use different attributes to hit, just like in Dance Macabre, because I like that. But now there's not like specific weapons. You have like a light sword, a medium sword, a long sword.
So more like Merc Borg, some of the OSR has gone that direction.
Yeah, more OSR, more kind of like Cairn and Knave, these kind of like, just very straightforward, just kind of like roll up a character, jump in, we're doing dumb shit in the dungeon. That's the idea behind Thrall, but I'm very excited about it. I've been working on some of the core mechanics for it. I have 20 character classes, which in the game I'm calling jobs, and it's very much like focused around like being onboarded for a job. Like character creation is written as a manual for being onboarded into a new position at a job.
Well, I will say before. If you want to say more about Thrall, you should. But Stillfleet 2 is also going to be whatever it ends up being. I mean, we're going to lean more into that trope, which really did inspire a lot of the game of like, this is the job interview. Yeah. These are the expectations. So a little more of the satire, because I think rereading the initial book I'm proud of, but I mean, it definitely is trying to walk a line. It's a little too poetic. It gets really into the science. There's a lot of weird terms. It doesn't necessarily emphasize that, you work for this company, they are the bad guy. There is this satire kind of frame around it. And I think in play, people get that. But I want the artifact, the book, to be lighter, simpler, have it a little faster. Bit
more forward.
It's also just so funny. Like everyone I know right now is either out of work or imminently afraid they're about to be. And so everyone is like on LinkedIn, which everyone hates, right? But like, don't tell LinkedIn. But everyone's on there, and we're all kind of like doing the tropes of what are the right keywords. Like people who I think are really smarter than me, asking me what are the keywords I use when I reach out to a recruiter. And so I'm like, what if you're being recruited to be like a space marine, you know, and you know that it's a bad job, but you're also just like, well, fuck, I need a job.
Nothing else.
So
There's nothing else out there.
I think Thrall and Stillfleet have some of that same DNA.
Yeah,
kind of responding to
for sure,
you know.
for sure. I mean, you know, the original idea for Thrall, I had it several years ago now, but it just came from like playing fantasy, you know, adventure games and being like, why the fuck are we doing this? Why am I delving this dungeon?
The arbitrariness.
Why
of the
am
dungeon.
I? Yeah, it always kind of drove me. It drove me a little bit crazy alongside the magic nitpick that I have, which is, you know, it just comes together in this thing where it's like, well, here's the reason. It's because you work for an asshole who's making you do the thing.
Your like soul is owned by the major crown.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we'll see if Thrall has rules for direct action and you know, this again can be. We can have a panel. We can have a fight. We'll have a panel / fist fight with some other authors around. You know, but Thrall sounds really cool. And I will say on the dungeon delving, we're also working on basically one of the first Grit System games. Totally not by us.
Yeah.
So we've published a bunch of games, and we're still from the ether. And we even
kind of
we even convinced Tony V to publish one with Picaro, which again is live right now. We're going to play some tomorrow. It's really fun. But we have a totally different game coming out that Konstantin Pradias, who wrote one of the chapters on Lithuania in the Guide to the Abandoned World, just pitched us on this game, and we ironed it out. So I think we're going to do this zine called Ultra Delve, and Ultra Delve is going to be sort of a Stillfleet prequel, but not attached in any direct way. It's just very near future. There's a kind of blip, like Incident the Haze is what he calls it. Aliens show up and they drop these mega structures. They're terraforming Earth, but then quickly realize, oh shit, there's sapient organisms. So everyone is just kind of like asleep or has amnesia and doesn't sort of, you kind of wake up and like the next day the world is the same, but like there's giant alien weird growing cities kind of in the middle of major cities. And basically the economy has to just keep going around them. But there are people who, and quickly they're very dangerous, right? People go in, scientists, the government, they're just like, this is crazy dangerous. These are like different biomes from other planets with a lot of machines that are dangerous that don't know that we're sapient.
It's kind of like
it's really
kind
cool.
of like Blind Sight.
Yes, and so
yeah, that's cool. That's
it's
sick.
very cool because I think he's done a great job, similar to what you're saying, of really stripping things down. So it plays. There's only 4 classes, and the rules seem much simpler. I've only read a quick draft, but he wrote it all, and it's fantastic because it reads like if you wanted to play a one shot of Stillfleet with someone and just have the weird alien tech stuff. And quite frankly, for a new player, because it's not far future, it's set kind of nowish.
Yeah.
Maybe in 5 years, right? It's kind of like, it's easier, I think, for some players. There's no lore, right? There's no lore. You're just a guy who needs a job. You need money, so you're going to go delve. And delving is really dangerous to the point where technically the government should keep you out. But similar to this whole genre, right? It's called zone fiction in an SF. It's kind of like in Roadside Picnic or Stalker. They kind of can't, right? There's too many of these things. The borders are big, and also they're kind of like, all right, man, if you have a death wish, like, go nuts. So I think it's a cool world, and again, without having a final version, just we announced, like, we decided we're going to do it. So I'm happy to announce that I think Thrall, I think Ultra Delve, I think these kinds of projects. It's not that I only want to do these, but I think given how big DM ended up being, and obviously before that Blister Critters, which is great, and then going back to Stillfleet and knowing that this year we want to do kind of a relaunch of Stillfleet, I think it'll be great to have some other projects that are not necessarily like meant to be long hardback books or something, or multiple books. They're just
short,
one
punchy,
and done.
Yeah, short,
zines,
punchy,
whatever you want to
one
say.
and done. Everything you need is in the box, kind of games where, I mean, it's something where it can always be elaborated on later. But,
right.
I mean, for me, I think Ultra Delve and for me personally, Thrall, it's meant to be this like.
Yeah.
Short document.
Roll it up randomly. Yeah.
Just fucking go,
This is a little different, but sometimes Kingdom, which are high fantasy game, we've had Ethan Goldini on before. We're finally going to publish that as a first zine, and that idea is meant to be maybe every zine adds more rules. So sort of like Electrum Archive, that kind of vibe.
Or Vaults of Varn kind of approach.
I think how Shadow Dark started as well. So we're offering not necessarily everything at once, because while it more or less is written in plays, we want to really build an audience and play test more with people their ideas for this particular, Ethan's very ultra vitalistic kind of queer high fantasy portal world, right? Where it's kind of adjacent to Earth. You can get back to Earth. It's kind of got its own logic. Everything's alive. Everything has spells. The magic design is really fun in that one. So that's going to be another kind of, for now, like a one-off zine that I think will be a fun thing to pick up and play and experience, and has great rules that is not locking you in, and you could easily do a one-off and be like, if you've played 5e or Daggerheart, right, that's the most sort of like 1-to-1 in terms of genre.
kind
So
of adjacent,
so I'm excited. So those are just some near future things that we're going to kind of explore. And I think as a way to wrap up the conversation, just shout out that we're going to do some live game designs. We're going to have on some folks and design some games together. So it could be, you know, probably these are, again, more zany, or we might have on folks to talk about, like, again, DM and what's going on, Thrall, or it was Stillfleet too, right? Probably have on, Tony Grasso, have on Ethan, and talk through some of these projects. We don't necessarily have big announcements there as much as just we're not completely changing the model or giving up, but we are very much. DM was a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
Yeah,
so I think there's going to be.
It continues to be a lot of work.
I would say, again, if you're interested in historical games, Danse Macabre is just a fantastic game. I do think Picard is pretty cool too for 1700. If it has traditional.
We got everything.
Fantasy.
We got everything you need.
Everything
we got early modern. We got medieval.
We got it all. And so DM going to retail. The fact that this year we're going to have Blister Critters and Danse Macabre available in stores, I think is going to be a learning experience for us. Finally. Yeah. Having gone to many wonderful stores, shout out to 20-sided, etc. But we really have to figure that out. I think maybe
we got to get in the stores.
We might have to invite some of them on the show, Chris. I don't know, live brainstorming.
Might have to.
So with that, I think we covered our list. Again, shout out to Vex, and thanks for throwing out a bunch of stuff in the chat that we should. I do always want to read lists of jobs that people publish on itch in any form. And I think that's it. I mean, Chris, is there anything else for season 3 of Why We Roll that you want to shout out?
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching and hanging out with us for 2 full seasons, and now going into a 3rd year of this. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but when we were at PAX, we had a few people come up to us, and they were just very genuine and sweet and authentic, and we're like, I love Why We Roll. I love listening to this show. I listen to it all the time. And I had no idea that was really happening. You see the numbers, you see the metrics when you put stuff up, but it's abstract. That was a really cool moment for me. It's just to be like, oh, nice, people are listening. Yeah. So I think for season 3, I just want to shout out everybody who's been listening, everybody who downloads the podcast. Big shout out to my dad if you made it this far into the episode. He usually stops after about 5 or 10 minutes. And thank you all.
Yeah, shout out to Chris's dad as well. No, to echo, I mean, I do think it's cool to hear not just from people we already know and love, but people we've never met who came up and said, and it does feel like a matter of growth that PAX to PAX you hear people come and say, oh, like I do actually listen, and we genuinely don't know who that is because, which is a good thing because we can make new friends, meet new people. We obviously want our friends and your dad to listen.
No, he's fine. He downloads the episodes and then he's like. He's good. He's like, I did my job. No, that's fine. That's more than like 90% of dads, right? At our age. He's a good guy.
But yeah, and to that point, as a final reminder, if you're listening to this right now, which is not as likely, but if you listen to it in the future, you can look this stuff up. But Philadelphia Area Game Expo happens every year. It's its 3rd year, and it has grown wildly. So this was a smaller con. It's in the suburbs of Philly, out in Oaks, so kind of like almost an hour from Philly. But it really grew in the from 1 to 2 to 3 to the point where now it's like kind of a bigger deal, bigger people are coming, and a lot of people are coming. We're really lucky. We're running almost every grid system game. We're running tons of games. We're also going to be, I'm going to be at Running Gag in outside of Rochester in Geneseo, New York. And then I'm not sure con-wise where we will be until Baltimore and Game Face Con. But we are really excited. I think I can speak for both of us to just, to your point, like find real people, have human interactions. That's why we like tabletop games. Obviously playing online works, I think, and does a lot of the human interaction bit. But when you can get together in person, it's nice to do so.
I agree. It's different.
Thanks for coming out, Chris, to Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
And thanks to everyone listening. And if you don't find us tomorrow at Page in Oaks, then maybe you'll see us at a con in the spring or in high con season. And the shout out to Proper Parental Praxis.
Parental Praxis. That's the true PPP.
PPP. On that note, we will see you next time in a couple weeks on Why We Roll for more tabletop role-playing game design chat. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here. If you like today's show, why not have a listen to Board Gamers Anonymous, one of the longest running board game podcasts out there. Join Anthony and Chris every week as they discuss everything in the board game world, from card games to miniature games and more. They talk about some of their favourites and hopefully help you find your next ones. If you want to check the show out, you can find more information at podderation.com.